Yesterday we were talking about the sota, and what we asked was, how did a nice girl like this get involved in something like that? That's what we asked. Now, there's two statements in the Gemara. The Gemara says, Kol haroa es sota b'kilkula. Anybody who sees a sota in her state of degradation, a sota is this woman who is strayed. Yesterday we were talking about this woman, the woman who has behaved treacherously. Right? She's committed adultery after the husband warned her not to. So it says, Kol haroa sota b'kilkula. Anybody sees a sota in her state of degradation, nazir atzmo min hayayin. He should vow off of wine. Now we're going to see the connection in a moment, because the next section that comes up is the nazir. Next section that comes up is the nazir. We'll talk about that in a section, in a second. What's that?
Talking about a confirmed sota?
We're talking about, but very good question. The degradation means that she goes through the whole process. What they do is, the Gemara describes, they take her up to the base of Mikdash, and first the Kohen rips some of her clothing, and he lets down the braids of her hair. Jewish women, they always had their hair braided. To have the hair out is unsneous, and he lets down her hair. This is all before she's confirmed guilty, because I told you yesterday, the fact that she's even in this situation, means she's already guilty. She's already guilty. She may not be guilty of adultery, but she's guilty of inappropriate behavior for a decent person. Sometimes they have a politician, who they accuse of various financial misappropriations. Then they acquit him. He's acquitted. So one of the guys, a politician, recently said, the newspapers get a hold of it, everybody makes a big fuss, says, okay, great, I'm acquitted. Now who's going to restore my good name? Right? The name is ripped already. And the answer is, well, don't get involved in anything that looks sketchy. There are certain people who never have these accusations made against them. Certain people are never in this situation. Rabbi Zweig never has this situation. Rabbi Zweig has never been accused of embezzling, and then we have to acquit him. It's always guys who are, it's always the same guys who are always getting in trouble. I used to go through it when I was in high school. I had some issues. Page 758. I had some, I was constantly in and out of hot water or close to hot water. So every time I was in or near the hot water, I always would ask myself, my older brother is one of these really tzaddik guys. He's nice and he's a great student and everything else. Every time I was in this situation, I asked myself, what would he do if he were in this situation? And unfortunately, the answer was always the same, which was, he wouldn't be in the situation to begin with. That was always the problem. The problem is he wouldn't be in the situation. You only got to get out of the situation if you get into the situation. So this is a woman who got into a situation. What are you doing in this? Why should your husband ever suspect you? Now, there's another statement in Talmud. The Gemara says, the satan, the evil inclination, does not tell a person, doesn't jump a person, I'll say, go worship idols. He doesn't do that. He'll do this, and do this, and do this, and do this, and then eventually he tells you to worship idols. That means that each person, this has to be understood very clearly, each person has a certain level. Let's choose a level. Have you ever heard of Rav Dessler's sliding scale of free choice? You ever heard of it? In other words, what's our free choice level right now? What is our level of free choice? There's nobody in this room right now who is struggling with pork. Pork is not a battle for us. If I was stuck on an airplane and I had nothing to eat, they would put pork in front of me, I wouldn't eat it. It's not even a battle. It's just not negotiable. I'm not going to eat pork. On the other hand, I'm also not at a high enough level where every time I make a bracha, I have 17 different Kabbalistic thoughts flittering through my mind. I'm not holding there either. I'm somewhere in between. Now, if I was on an airplane and they put pork in front of me, it wouldn't be a battle. But if I was on an airplane and they put something in front of me that has a dubious hechsher, a hechsher I normally wouldn't eat, and I've heard things about that hechsher, and I'm on an airplane, I'm getting hungrier, then all of a sudden there, the evil inclination starts up with me. Right there, I go, it's life-threatening, and maybe, you got all the rationalizations. Now, if I fail the test, my whole, in other words, I'm somewhere in that range, and you're somewhere in that range. Now, if I fail that test, so then the next test becomes something that doesn't have a hechsher. Oh, well, maybe I could go eat fish out. I could eat fish. After all, it's a kosher fish. The fact that the restaurant is treif. But, it's probably... And once I eat fish out, the French fries are probably okay, too. And then once I eat the French fries, the graph slides until one day I'm just eating raw treif. I'm eating pork. Because then the rationalization, well, if I could eat the fish and nothing happened, I didn't get struck by lightning by eating the fish, so I could probably eat the pork too. You understand? It's a sliding graph. It works in climbing as well. If I pass the test, then I've just improved my level. I say, well, listen, if I pass that side, I may as well make my bracha with more kavanah. And if I make the bracha with more kavanah for a while, then all of a sudden, I'll maybe get some Kabbalistic kavanah. And after that, I get to the next level where eventually you're all asking me for a bracha because I'm a tzaddik and I'm a li'anavi. You never know where you could get to over here. I can't because no, it was a coin. I can't be Mashiach. I could be a li'anavi, you never know. But I can't, you understand? And the graph moves from place to place. So who are we talking about? You're talking about a frum woman. Picture the frum women whose houses you've been in on Shabbos. Right? They barely talk to you. Most of them barely talk. They barely talk to their own husbands, right? They barely talk to you. They're Hasidic homes where the men sit in one room, the women sit in the other room. If there are guests, if the family's together, they sit together. But if they're otherwise they just sit in separate rooms. So you're talking about somebody who's raised and indoctrinated her entire life, where she's allergic to men. You don't go near that. There's no integration whatsoever. Okay. So one Friday night, a guy from Ortzebach shows up at the house. And, says thank you to the wife for the meal. The wife says, my pleasure. Where are you from? I'm from here. They start chatting a little bit. Everything's fine. The next Friday night, the guy was a very charming guy. And her husband was really tired, so he went to crash out on the couch in the living room after the meal. And she's cleaning the dishes, and she's chatting with the guy a little bit more. Then the next Friday night, he comes over again. This time, the husband goes up to sleep. And she says, I got to go over to the neighbor to check on the sick grandfather. The guy says, oh, should I walk you? Oh, yeah, come walk me. And you understand, the graph slides slowly, but next thing you know, she's secluded with him. That's how it happens. It doesn't happen overnight when all of a sudden somebody whose free choice is over here, all of a sudden, boom, he's hit over here. It doesn't work that way. It works with a little bit of, it is slowly but surely there is the evil inclination slowly but surely. He chips away at a person till he gets a person. Next thing a person's doing things that they would never imagine they're doing. I am sure that every one of you has had a situation in life, at some point or other in your life, I don't know when that was, there was some stage or other where you said to yourself, I would never do that, I would never smoke that, I would never drink that, I would never snort that. Something that you've said I would never. And then 3 years later, you find that you're doing it. And you're doing it, you're probably selling it. And how did you get there? What happened? It didn't happen overnight. It was one thing, then I went off to university, and then I was at a party, and I really didn't want to, but I only had one, and then all right, that's how it works. Next thing you know,
you drink it, then you smoke.
There you go. And you go from one. That's life. That's life. That's what happened to her. That's what happened to her. That's why the Gemara says, anybody who sees it, vow off of wine. The Gemara says a person who sees a sota in her state of degradation, vow off of wine. Why? Because wine is the catalyst for this kind of behavior. Usually this kind of behavior begins with alcohol. That people lose the hold on their mind a little bit, and it loosens up the inhibitions, and the next thing you know, people are doing things that they really shouldn't be doing. That's what the Torah says. Therefore the Torah says, she obviously didn't happen overnight. But we didn't either. I didn't, and you didn't. But who knows what, we could reach any level. Nobody could ever say, I'll never do something like that. We could reach any level. There's a head of I don't know if you heard of this group, Disturbed? You ever heard of this a heavy metal group called Disturbed, right? This is a kid who grew up in a day school. The lead singer is a kid who grew up in a day school in Chicago. He's a day school kid, went to yeshiva in Chicago. He's the head of a heavy metal guy. Looks like a savage with 3 studs in his hand. I heard it once because I knew the kid. I knew the kid's family. I knew the kid's family. So one of the guys here had I put it on. I was disturbed. I got no other word for it. I mean, the heavy metal and the lyrics and the whole thing. I didn't start that way. It didn't happen overnight. It's one thing, and then another thing, then another thing. Next thing you know, the kid's in trouble. That's what the Torah is telling you over here. Very, very important insight into Torah psychology, because that's how things work. We grow one level at a time, and we could deteriorate one level at a time. I remember the first time I went to America when we got married. So we were in Israel, and I was learning in Kol, and I was from. Ooh, was I from? Oof, oof. I threw stones at cars on Tuesdays. I mean, I was really from. And we made our first trip to America. We were here about a year. Made our first trip back. So I pledged off, because in Israel it's only Torah, and I pledged off when I went out. I told my wife, nothing, I'm not going to touch newspapers, TV, chas v'shalom, nothing, and nothing. Okay, good. So for the first few days I was really good. And they delivered a newspaper to the house. So after a while, at least the sports section in the bathroom. At least the sports section. I mean, sports. So I can't read Torah. It's not fair. What it's tzaddik. At least the sports section. So after the sports section, then it became, the news, I could read the news. What's wrong with the news? And I just remember slowly but surely I deteriorated. Slowly but surely I deteriorated. So on the first trip, I was limited to sports sections in newspapers. The second trip I was there was already Erev Pesach. It was an Erev Pesach trip. So we're cleaning the house for Pesach. So I'm scrubbing the what do you call it, in the living room. I'm scrubbing the carpet in the living room. And all of a sudden I hear my brother-in-law's in the back room. He's got the TV on. There's a basketball game on. Just my luck. I keep hearing Larry Bird. The announcer keeps saying Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. Just my luck. You know, couldn't have been Cleveland. It had to be Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. And I'm saying, you know, so I'm scrubbing and I'm just listening. So I finally said to my wife, can I scrub in there? You know, can I go scrub in that room? I said, all right, go ahead. That was the playoff game where Michael scored 63 points. That was the playoff game where Michael. So I'm scrubbing. First I'm scrubbing. Okay, and I watched the game's double overtime. My wife kept coming into the room. She said, is game over yet? I said, well, there's overtime. She comes in again. She says, game over yet? I said, there's another overtime. So my wife says, I have siyata d'shmaya. You know, I have special divine assistance to watch the longest sports game. You know, by the next trip, I didn't even fake it. My next trip, I walked into the room, sat down with a TV tray, had a Coke and pop. You know, my mother-in-law made me chicken. You know, it was great. And if I was going to go to Gehenna, I'm going to do it right. You know, that was. Where did it say? And I promised myself I wouldn't. The answer is that it erodes. You erode slowly but surely. You erode. That's what the Torah is teaching you, and it's very, very true. Now, look at the next section. By the way, I was going to tell you, I heard an interesting story. You know, you talk about pikuach nefesh, life-threatening situation. I'm hungry. I'm on the plane. So I heard about a guy. Maybe you told me this. I think, Mr. Vogel, you might have told me this one. I forgot who told me. A guy is back in the time of the Depression. Guy says to his wife, they're Shabbos observant family. Guy says to his wife, listen, I'm going to have to go to work on Shabbos. It's pikuach nefesh. It's life-threatening. The wife says, no, you can't work on Shabbos. You can't work on Shabbos. The guy says, no, I have to work on Shabbos. Okay, the wife doesn't want her husband to work on Shabbos. So that night, before he goes to sleep, she hid his clothing. He wakes up Saturday morning. He was looking for his clothing. He says, where's my clothes? You know, I need my clothes. I got to go to work. The wife says, why do you go to work? He said, it's pikuach nefesh. The wife says, I understand. If it's pikuach nefesh, you could go in your pajamas. If it's life-threatening, you should go in your pajamas. Is it life-threatening or is it not life-threatening? That's why they kept Shabbos. They never desecrated Shabbos. And there's life-threatening. There's life-threatening. You know, there's a famous story with the Stiplers, that's all. The Stipler was in the Russian army. So in the Russian army, he was this big, you know, when they were big anti-Semites. So one day, the captain says, okay, Kanievsky with Shabbos. Says, Kanievsky, get up. We're taking target practice. Shoot the rifle. Says, sir, I'm not going to shoot the rifle. He says, you're going to shoot the rifle or I'm going to kill you. Says, sir, I'm not going to shoot the rifle. So the captain starts hollering at him. He storms off. And the guys are standing there. They say, Kanievsky, you better shoot it. He's going to kill you. It's a life-threatening situation. You're allowed to do it. He says, I'm not shooting the rifle. Captain storms off, brings back a major. Major says, Kanievsky, pick up the rifle and shoot. He says, I'm not going to shoot. You don't shoot, I'm going to kill you. Everybody's saying, you better shoot. He's a major, you better shoot. So I'm not shooting the rifle. Major says, Kanievsky. He storms off. He brings back a colonel. Colonel says, pick up the rifle and shoot. So I'm not shooting. Everybody says, it's pikuach nefesh, it's pikuach nefesh. So I was like, I'm not shooting. It's not pikuach nefesh. Colonel pulls out a pistol, puts it to his temple. He says, Kanievsky, shoot the gun or I'm going to pull the trigger and blow your brains out. He turns up and says, now it's pikuach nefesh. You understand? There's pikuach nefesh and there's pikuach nefesh. There are two different versions of the story. One version of the story is that the guy said he has to shoot on Shabbos till he hits the bullseye. So he took the rifle and he shot it with a shino. He shot it with his left hand instead of his right hand, which is shino makes it a drabanan, and hit the bullseye on the first shot. You know, so there's pikuach nefesh and there's pikuach nefesh. Not everything is pikuach nefesh. You'll make it on the plane for a few hours eating bananas. It's not pikuach nefesh that you got to go and eat the non-kosher meals. That's what the Torah is teaching. Now, take a look at page 758. Right after this sota, the Torah begins with by the way, the commentaries ask, and why does she get rewarded to have children? Why does she get rewarded to have children? I mean, after all, this is a woman. Okay, so she drank the water. She's innocent, but like we said, she's far from a tzadekis, you know. So why should she be rewarded? The Gemara says there's one opinion: if she never had children, she'll have children. There's another opinion: if she had a difficult birth, she'll have easy birth. Why should she be rewarded? Now, Isaac, you touched on it yesterday, I think. Why should she be rewarded? Why should she be rewarded?
Is it because she consumed Hashem's name?
There is such an idea. We'll get to there in a second. We'll get to there in a second. Why should she be rewarded? So one of the answers is, well, at the end of the day, there is a false accusation here. In other words, she did one thing wrong, but she didn't do what she's being accused of, and therefore, as compensation for the public degradation, she had, we're going to restore her good name over here. So one of the commentaries says, well, there's compensation for what do you call it? Compensation for having been accused falsely. So the Talmud asks the logical question: well, if that's what happens, so any childless woman will go, isolate herself with some man, get her husband to accuse her. She knows she's innocent, and this way she'll have children because she knows she'll get her husband to accuse her and she'll have children. So you've got a cure for all the childless ladies. And the Gemara answers, yeah, but women aren't going to do that. The reputation, no, women. There's a limit to what people are going to do to degrade themselves in life. The person's self-dignity and honor. I'm just not going to do that. By the way, this is 100% true. There's a woman in Israel who just had her first child at age 65. A childless couple, 46 years they're married with no children. She just had her first child at age 65. Mazel tov. No. This is an Advorna. Very good, touche. What's that? I would imagine she was on something. I imagine she was on something. She was a 65-year-old woman married 46 years, her first child after 46 years. So the what do you call it? That's why she's compensated, because at the end of the day you were accused falsely. By the way, in life in general, if you ever accuse somebody falsely, you should compensate them. You should compensate somebody. Not only that, if you ever wronged somebody, an apology doesn't work. It works, but apology is not enough. If you ever wronged somebody, you should feel the sting of the apology, which means that you should buy them something. You wronged somebody had wronged you, you had an argument with somebody, and you found out that you were wrong. So you should don't just apologize. Go buy them something. Buy them a gift. Buy them a favor. Do something to show them that you really feel that you should feel the sting, so that you're more careful next time. That's the best thing to do when you're.
Buy them something that'll make it worse.
Yeah. Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Somebody bought me how to win friends and influence.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you had a fight with your wife because you insulted her cooking, and you say, Ritz, I'm really sorry. Then you give her a brand new cookbook. Bad, very bad idea. Very, very, very bad idea. Not a good idea. So you're right. How to win friends and you have an argument with somebody. Well, I think you're very tactless. So I am not. I say, I apologize. Right here. Take this. That's a good one. I like that. How to win friends and influence people. Now take a look at 758. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemar. Hashem speaks to Moshe and says the following. Sixth line on 758. Daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta aleim. Speak to the Jewish people and say to them, Ish o isha, ki yafli lindor neder. When a man or a woman expresses a vow, nazir, to be a Nazirite, lahazir laHashem. They express a vow of being a Nazirite.
What's a Nazirite?
I'm going to explain in a second. So the Torah tells you what are the rules of a Nazirite. Miyayin v'sheicher yazir. He has to yazir at one level means to back away from, to separate oneself, to distance oneself. How does he translate? From the way he abstain. Art Scroll translated as abstaining. The best word for nazir really moves to move away from. It doesn't mean abstaining. In context, that's what he does. But the word itself, the pure form of the word, means lehazir, means to move yourself away, distance yourself from something. So he's got to distance himself from wine and strong drink. Chometz yain v'chometz shecher lo yishta, any type of wine or vinegar of wine, aged wine, he should not drink. V'chol mishras anavim lo yishta, any sort of grape, again, how does he translate it? Anything with grapes have been steeped. Oof. He should not drink. V'anovim lachim v'yevei. Can't eat dry or moist or dry grapes. Nothing from the grape products. Okay. Then the Torah says in Pasuk Hey, skip down one Pasuk. Kol yemei neder nizro, all the days of his Naziriteship, ta'ar lo yavor al rosho. He's not allowed to cut his hair. May not pass a blade over his hair. Ad melos hayamim asher yazer la Hashem, until the days that he has vowed as a nazir are completed. Kodoshiyah gadol peres harosh, he must grow his hair. And then the last requirement is kol yemei hazir laHashem al nefesh meis lo yavo, he must not come in contact with the dead body. Okay, now that means there are three requirements for a nazir. Person comes along and he makes a pledge. For example, a person, for example, says, I will be a nazir. That makes him a nazir for a minimum of 30 days. If he says, I will be a nazir for 3 years, he's a nazir for 3 years. Then you have one outstanding category of a nazir. The guy says, I will be a nazir forever, which means till the end of his life he's a nazir, and then every 30 days he's allowed to trim. He has certain halachas of what happens every 30 days, but he's a nazir for the rest of his life. And then you have the one outstanding category where it's only had one in history, which is a nazir like Shimshon, who was a nazir from the stomach. The parents pledged him as a nazir. They were told by the angel of pleasant, and Samson was a nazir. Now, the word nazir has two meanings. Number one, it means to move away. And in Hebrew, it's connected to the Hebrew word nazir. Anybody know what a nazir is? Nazir is a crown. Interesting. What's the connection between a crown, a keter, and a nazir? A nazir is really like, what's that thing that the Romans wore around their head? A wreath? Tiara. What's a tiara? Oh, it's like with the wreath of leaves with the flowers. Maybe the Greeks I'm thinking of, or a laurel, something like that. I think a nazir is more like that thing. It's not quite a crown. A crown is a keter. A nazir is really also one of those fancy head things. Everything. You can't picture those old movies where they're wearing that thing. Whatever that thing is called, the branches, a wreath or what was the other word you used? A wreath or a laurel, whatever that thing is. So, but it's obviously connected to a crown. It has to do with the crown. Okay. So the connection. What's the connection between a nazir and a nazir? And the answer is that the crowning achievement for a human being is self-control. It means, are you being pushed around by your desires, or do you control your desires? If you control your desires, you rule over your desires as opposed to your desires ruling over you. Anything that anybody is addicted to, you can be addicted to coffee. That means coffee rules over me, which it does. Because you got to have your cup of coffee in the morning. You can't get your day started without a cup of coffee. If you're addicted to sugar, or you're addicted to cigarettes, whatever you're addicted to, I'm not against addictions, by the way, I'm all for it, but if you're addicted to something, it just means that thing has control over you to the degree that some people are addicted to meat. I remember a kid at camp who was addicted. The kid was a spoiled kid. He had to have pistachio nuts. Just had to have pistachio nuts. He'd come to talk about, say, I finally his parents sent him a care package with pistachio nuts. It was just pistachio, just in love with pistachio nuts. I don't think it's a physiological addiction. It's not. They use addiction now. He's addicted to gambling and he's addicted to this, addicted to that. The truth of the matter is that he's addicted to Torah, addicted to But the bottom line is that addiction means that there is a chemical, that there is a withdrawal syndrome. There's physiological withdrawal if you don't do it. So it's difficult where that line is. They use it as there's chemical addiction and there's behavioral addiction, and where that line of addiction is a very, very difficult. And then everybody's got a definition. When are you considered addicted? A guy watches TV 3 hours a night. Will you say he's addicted to television? Well, it depends who you ask. That's all. It's not a physiological withdrawal. You heard a story about this guy. A husband says to his wife, listen, Zelda, if I'm ever dependent, if I get to a point where I'm dependent on a machine, I want you to promise me you'll pull the plug. So I says, really? He says, yeah, promise me. Promise me you'll never let me just be dependent on a machine. She says, are you sure? He goes, yeah. She gets up, she walks across the room, she unplugs the TV. One man's addiction is another man's behavior or interest. Everybody's got their, okay. So here the Torah says, you got a man who, right after he sees the sota, everybody watches the sota. Anybody in the immediate vicinity has an obligation. This woman, the woman who's strayed, when the coin invokes the entire process and makes her drink, everybody in the area has to go and watch. So the Torah says that if you've seen that and you realize that the cause of that type of behavior is generally alcohol, so then you should pledge off of alcohol. Because we can't trust ourselves, just like she couldn't trust herself, number one. Number two, he is to avoid taking haircuts. Not only can't take haircuts, he's not allowed to pull out any hair, therefore he can't use a comb on his hair. If he uses a comb on his hair, he pulls out any hair, he's transgressing. And number three, he's not allowed to come into contact with a dead body. What's going on here? So the Torah is telling us that there are 3 areas where a person who is going to be a nazir for 30 days, 3 areas what you have to get under control. Number one, physical desire. Wine is always a symbol of physical desire. Wine is the physical pleasures of life, and you imbibe the wine, and then the next thing you know, you're involved in all sorts of physical pleasures, out of control. Number one. Number two, there is the ego. And the ego begins with, take a look in the mirror, and you admire what you see in the mirror, and therefore he is to neglect his physical appearance by allowing his hair to grow and no grooming. No grooming. He's a guy who lets his hair grow. He looks like he stepped out of he was wandering the jungles for a few months. You ever see these guys, they come out of the jungle, what they look like, or guys who go to the Far East and they come back from their trip, and you know, he looks like a savage, right? No physical, doesn't have to look like a savage. No grooming. I'm putting my ego aside. And number three, he's striving for new levels of purity, always symbolized by not coming into contact with a dead body. That's what the nazir is. So
Chastity, is that required?
No, chastity not, but because that's a normal course of living. Number one. Number two, that's an imposition on his wife. Those are her marital rights. He can't impose on her. So a man, with her permission, is allowed to behave with a certain amount of distancing from his wife. That there is permissible, and at very high levels, there are people who do that. But it has to be with the wife's permission, because there's a Torah command for a man to live like a normal husband. That's a Torah command, and that's her right. The Torah says that's a husband's obligation. It's a wife's right. In this world at large, it's a husband's right and a wife's duty. The Torah is exactly the opposite. It's the wife's right and it's the husband's duty. The husband is saddled with the obligation, and therefore you can't go to impose something on yourself which is somebody else's expense. Important principle in life in general. Now, the nazir is then going to spend whatever amount of time that he pledged to be a nazir, he's going to spend in this state. Okay? Now, the obvious question here becomes, okay, so he did it for 30 days. I mean, so what? After 30 days, he's right back to where he started from. The guy says, I'll be a nazir for 30 days. So you're a nazir for 30 days, terrific. I'll give you a medal. And after 30 days, what are you going to do? You're going to be right back where you started from. What's the answer? What's the answer?
The sliding scale of free will, it actually does.
Yes, excellent. Number one, small steps help. Well, you're right. Maybe afterwards you will go back, but you will have taken a step forward, number one. You've taken a step forward in the right direction, number one. Even more importantly, it's a reminder to the nazir, the person who's experienced it sees it's possible to live with a certain degree of self-control. Nothing will happen to you. You can live with self-control. Sometimes we're out of control and we can't imagine being in control. So a guy says, you know what, I got to get in control of myself. This is, by the way, a good thing in life in general. We can't make vows, we don't make pledges. But it is a good thing in general when a person finds himself out of control in certain areas, whatever the area happens to be. A guy's just been eating too many potato chips. You know, whatever. It's a good idea for a person to sometimes step back and just, let's spend the day without it, just to make sure that I've got control and it's not controlling me. It's a good thing once in a while. You know what? I think I've been doing a little too much of this. Let's back off a little bit. Leave your cell phone home for one day. And leave your cell phone home for one day because you're being controlled by your cell phone a little bit. Let's leave it home for one day. You're being controlled. Yeah, but I've been on a meat rampage. I've been eating. I haven't even waiting for the animal to die before. I've been on a meat. That's right. Just back off a little bit. So that's a good. The Torah is teaching you that a person has to see. What's that?
I picked the meat out of the
You picked the meat out, Joe. Well, any yeshiva boy worth his salt, they all do that. But you don't want to be the yeshiva guy at the table where the chompot gets to you last, right? You're never going to find meat in there, So the what do you call I insisted years ago, my wife, that she makes two pots. There's the pot with the potato and the goop. Then there's a platter of meat so that everybody can see, this is what I want to get at. Let me just see where it is. I don't have to play hide and seek with the shoal. Yeah, and anyway, that's what everybody wants to get to. So the Torah is teaching you even a little step is worthwhile. And then you can see, it's doable. It's not the end of the world. I can do it. I can actually manage with it. That's the lesson of the nazir. Now, go ahead.
But like too much control, like it's hard to keep that proper balance because too much control is just horrible. I mean,
Excellent.
Sin to be a Nazarite?
And it's hard to keep that balance.
Very good. Very good. Look at the next pasuk.
And you can see it, I mean.
Yeah, look on page, very good. We're going to try to understand that. Take a look at page 760, pasuk Yud Aleph. It's an atonement for him for having sinned by coming in contact with a dead body. The kiddush is rosho bayomahu. Now take a look at Rashi. It's the right column, 5 lines from the bottom. Right column of Rashi, pasuk Yud Aleph. Me'asher chota ala nefesh, that he sinned regarding the person. He sinned regarding the body. Okay, he sinned regarding the body. It says Rashi, Shelo nizar mitubas hames. He's taken into account because he did not come. He made a pledge and then he ended up getting defiled. He came in contact with a dead body. Rabbi Elazar HaKapar Omer shetzir atzmo min hayayin. He needs an atonement because he pledged off of wine. Why should you need an atonement for becoming a nazir? Why should you need an atonement for becoming a nazir? So the commentaries talk about this quite a bit. And the answer is, and this goes to what you were saying very much, Aaron. The answer is, first of all, you need an atonement for getting yourself to a point where you felt you need to be a nazir. Why do you need to take such drastic measures? That means you were out of control before you. You're right. The fact that you had to become a nazir means that something you were doing in advance was not appropriate. So you're accountable for that. And then number 2, the commentaries say, a lot depends on who you are as a person. A lot depends on you. For some people, being a nazir is sinful. You're not holding at that level of abstaining. Because like you say, and the rule in Yiddishkeit is, Judaism is demanding and rigid enough. We don't have to go make life difficult for us. We don't have to go. He just showed me, Rabbi Schiller just showed me an email he got. Somebody asked, there's a very big Talmud Chacham, Rabbi Shlomo Miller in Toronto. So somebody once asked Rabbi Shlomo Miller, he showed me right now an email. He asked,
The Millers that are here?
No. This is a Rabbi Shlomo Miller's Rosh Kol in Toronto. Somebody asked him a halachic question. So Rabbi Miller gave him an answer. The guy said, well, I'd like to be machmir. I want to be stringent. So Rabbi Miller said to him, we just read Megillas Rus. And because the guy who had the first option to marry Rus decided to be stringent, and he left it to Boaz to marry her, he decided to be stringent, and because of that, he did not have David HaMelech and Mashiach come from him. That's what happens from stringencies. The Gemara says that if you ask a halachic authority, a shaila, you ask a question, and he gives you a halachic answer, and then you go to find another answer to give you a leniency, you're a rasha. You asked a question.
Or you asked them stringently.
He asked the question, he ruled stringently, he's a capable halachic authority, you have to listen to him. You're going to look for a leniency, the Gemara says you're a rasha. Then the Gemara says, and if you asked him and he ruled leniently, and you go to look for a stringency, then you're what's called a halachic moron. What are you going and asking for? He ruled leniently. What, you got to be more religious than what are you going looking? Why make life hard for you for? This is particularly true for Baalei Teshuvas. And I just had a long discussion with him yesterday in a different yeshiva. You have to understand, our job is to be upbeat, to serve God in a state of being upbeat, energized, what they call Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha. Simcha doesn't mean vodka in a trampoline. Simcha means that we're supposed to be upbeat, energetic, and our whole outlook on life, we have to have balance and equilibrium. You better know who you are as a person before you start taking on stringencies. So for example, a guy decides, I want to work on my self-control. No more chocolate cake for me. No more chocolate, no more desserts for me. I've got to work on my self-control. Hey, listen, you were a guy who's eating swordfish 2 weeks ago, and don't you think that that's enough of a job? Stop eating swordfish, and you're doing what? You got to work on kosher chocolate cake already? Don't worry, you'll get there. And a person who jumps the level, you know what the acid test is? I'll tell you what the acid test is. If I skip chocolate cake for my dessert, then I go to sit down and learn. If I'm energized and I feel good, I took on a challenge and I overcame the challenge. Like in life, when you overcome a challenge, you feel good, right? That's a great sign. I'm holding on that level. If I look down at my Gemara and all I see is Amar Rava, chocolate cake, right? You're not holding by that level. Go eat your chocolate cake and then go learn Gemara like a mensch. You're not holding by that level. And a person has to know what level they're holding on. And any deprivation, any form of, if I feel I need it, you may need, Rabbi Gottlieb has said, others as well. Sometimes Baalei Tshuvas cut out everything from their previous life. Who told you to do that? Let's say a guy's a musician. So you're a musician. Who said that to be a frum Jew? You need your outlet to play guitar. Another guy needs his outlet to go jogging. Another guy needs an outlet to listen to music. Another guy needs an outlet to paint. Who told you that you have to cut that? People ask all the time, is Goyish music usher? And people say, it's usher. Usher. Who told you it's usher? How do you know it's usher? Who told you it's usher? It's not usher. You're not allowed to listen to a woman singing. And suggestive lyrics are prohibited. And music that gets you in the mood to go shoot a cop is also not advisable, right? But it doesn't mean that it's usher. Let's draw the line. It's usher. I had this with I've taught this to my kids also. Don't make up halachas in any direction. Not that things are permissible and not that things are forbidden. Who told you it's forbidden? Who told you it's forbidden? It may be inadvisable. And at your level, it's probably something you shouldn't be doing. But it doesn't say it's usher. Don't cross that line to usher. Usher means you can get a ticket for it. And here you won't get ticketed for it. You're not getting ticketed for it. You're certainly not going to get a citation, but you're not going to get a ticket for it because it's not usher. You have to know we're normal human beings, and before a person abstains in any area of life, whether physical, emotional, whatever their needs are, who said you should abstain? Who said you should abstain? Go get somebody who knows, he's got his head screwed on straight, and has experience in guiding people, and he'll tell you. To the contrary, maybe you're taking on too much. And often guys take on too much, and then they leave it all together, because the guy comes and says, Yiddishkeit's too difficult. Well, of course it's difficult. Who told you could only speak Aramaic? Right? You decided I could only speak Aramaic, I got to go by my Hebrew name, and I'm not allowed to eat anything other than bread and water. Who told you that? Well, I read in Pirkei Avos. Well, stop reading. It's like the guy who says, I once read cigarette smoking is bad for your health. So I immediately quit reading. Sometimes people don't read so much. You gotta go ask a question. That's what the Torah says. And you're absolutely right. And the same person, one person could be a nazir, and it's a badge of pride, because you should be the Vilna Gaon used to eat, and he would chew his food. He would only eat bread and water and like a salty piece of fish, and he would chew his food as few times as possible. He would chew his food as few times as possible to minimize his pleasure from this world.
They give you indigestion.
Well, I don't know. The Vilna Gaon was okay. The Vilna Gaon was okay. I'm not I do the same thing with lemon meringue pie. I chew it as few times as possible to minimize. Is that where you're holding? Is that where we're holding? Eat your food, enjoy it, make a good bracha, say thank you to the hostess, and bench. That's our job in this world. That's our job. We're not holding holding our breath and swallowing the food unless the food is really bad, right? And even then you got to know, can you handle it? They say you're a guest at somebody's house on Shabbos. I had a policy: if I got to ask what it is, I don't eat it. I don't eat it. If I got to ask, that's already a bad sign. So some people, they could put out food in front of you, and the food is just not good, and I know it's not good. Now there are certain tzaddikim who could eat it, and they're fine. They could eat the food, and they're fine. There's down it, so the hostess isn't insulted. There are other people who can't do that. You better know who you are, because the worst thing you could do is take one bite and then not finish it. That's like holding up a sign, this food stinks, right? So if you're the type of person who can't, you just say, I don't eat gefilte fish. That's not insulting the hostess. I don't eat gefilte fish. I don't eat gefilte fish. And you don't touch the gefilte fish. I don't. Yeah, and everyone is trying my gefilte fish. It got so bad when I was a bacher in yeshiva. Guys, every Jewish woman thinks she makes it's the best gefilte fish. I detest gefilte fish. And it got to the point I just said I'm allergic to fish. And is there something else we can get? Yeah, well, the doctor said steak is a really good substitute. That way they get off. Everybody respects allergies. Everybody respects allergies. I'm allergic to fish. So when I went with my brother, if we ever went together to somebody's house, it was not a problem. My brother could down anything. Live, dead, anything. So I just switched plates with him. He'd knock off his piece, then we'd switch plates, and he'd knock off. He was a guy, he could just hammer anything away, So, but I could, I'm very picky, and I know that I'm not going to be able to, I don't want to hack at the table, so I say, don't touch it. But you have to know who you are at every level of life. At every level of stage of life, you have to know who you are. You have to know who your wife is. You have to know who your friends are. Your wife says she needs to go to a restaurant. I don't want to eat out at restaurants. I'm holy. Yeah, but she does. And your holiness is going with your wife to the restaurant, not you not going to the restaurant. That's also part of kedusha. It's also holiness.
Very few people know who they are.
I don't know. Some people, we spend a lifetime trying to find that, figure it out. Some people are more in touch with themselves than others, but we're always struggling with that. And a lot of it is trial and error. I've tried this and I see I can't handle this. I'm going to try going to the Nate's Minyan every morning. Well, I go to the Nate's Minyan and I'm a big tzaddik. I go to the Nate's Minyan and I fall asleep from 10 till 12 in the morning because I'm exhausted. So don't daven Nate's. You're not holding by that yet. Some of it's trial and error. I got a little bit of testing. Not wrong. That's why the nazir is being called to account. Number one, why did you get yourself in a situation where you got to do this? And number two, why are you doing that? Who told you to pray? It's a life lesson. It's not just limited to the nazir. That's why the hair represents total neglect of our physical appearance. We're not holding that, and we should do that. And the wine represents detachment from the physical pleasures, and the mace represents the levels of purity. And a person has to know what level he's on. Okay, yeah.
What about having wine for kiddush?
Wine for kiddush he's not allowed to have. He'd have to be yotze, or he makes kiddush on bread. Friday night you can make kiddush on bread. Shabbos day is a little bit of more of a problem. But he could drink whiskey. He could drink whiskey because whiskey wasn't as widespread. Wine was a major drink. The Gemara talks extensively about wine and how they made wine and how they used to we put the word dilute the wine. Wine has a certain status in Judaism. Whiskey is called yayin saraf. It's called hot wine. But as long as it's not a grape product. As long as the alcohol is not a grape product. It's not a grape product. Right. But it wasn't as widespread in those days. The drink, almost like we drink pop at a meal, they drank wine. Wine was a main beverage that people drank. I have my own suspicions about why they drank wine. The French and the Germans and all the European countries, I suspect. I don't know if it's true or not. Just my own idea. In France, they drink a lot of wine, right? In Germany, they drink a lot. I just suspect that because in the period of the plague, where the water was tainted with all sorts of bacteria, that they figured out that the alcohol kills the bacteria, so they drank alcoholic beverages. I'm just guessing. I don't know if it's true or not. But whatever it is, plus you get a buzz from it. But I'm not sure. I don't have any.
Still drink alcohol.
What's that?
That seems like
right, because the suspicion of him over imbibing in yayin saraf was not as the Torah says grapes. Those grapes, only grape. They didn't have it. Wasn't that common a drink. So you could theoretically make kiddush on Shabbos on whiskey, according to those poskim who say, could you take a shot of whiskey? Some poskim say you have to actually drink as much whiskey to make kiddush on Shabbos morning. You have to drink as much whiskey as you would have drunk wine, a revius of whiskey. A revius of whiskey is, there are poskim who say that.
a short meal.
A short meal. It'd be a short life, And there are people actually do it. When I grew up in Shul, there were always these little old men who drinking like a shot of whiskey, they make a shackle and share. There are poskim who say that's acceptable. Most people don't rely on that under extenuating circumstances because a Friday night's not a problem because you make kiddush on bread. Shabbos day, you have to hear kiddush from somebody else. That's what the nazir did. That's the lesson of the nazir. Okay, we're late. We'll have to stop.